Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, April 19th. We are privileged to be meeting and doing our work this evening on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Hatsqualawin, Queestaluktamuk, La Squahopmish, Okameo. Council, motion to adopt the amended agenda. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any notice of motion? We do not have any delegations, petitions, or proclamations this evening. So I'm on to item number 5. So this is consideration of unscheduled public attendance. This is anyone in attendance this evening, either electronically or in council chambers that has an item they wish to speak to council about, and they feel can't wait 2 weeks until the next regularly scheduled meeting. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6. So we do have a public hearing this evening. This is the public hearing for District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw for the Patio Program, number 2906-2022. And I just have a statement to read out, and then we'll get going. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act requirements to allow the public to present and to provide submissions to council respecting the proposed bylaw. This is District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw for the Patio Program, number 2906-2022. Discouraged or prevented from making their views known, whether speaking in favor or against the proposed zoning amendment. Please ensure that your remarks are relevant to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Please note that the public hearing is not an opportunity for members of the public to have their questions answered by staff or by council. Any questions or points of clarification can be directed to staff by contacting the planning department. Members of council may ask clarifying questions following presentations. Council is here to listen and will not debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with the public or each other during the public hearing. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed live, and the recording will be posted to the district website. Media are often present at public hearings, and the public should feel free to advise the media if they don't want their picture taken. Up to and as part of this hearing, the public has had the opportunity to make submissions to council. If any submissions were received, they are available for review and comment and have been included as part of staff's report. Any submissions received after the agenda was published have been added to the electronic agenda and to the electronic public hearing package available on the district website. Any submissions made during the hearing can be reviewed during the hearing by viewing the electronic agenda, and submissions will be uploaded by staff as they are received. We are trying to make this hearing a safe space for everyone to voice their opinion without interference from others. Therefore, I ask that members of the public maintain order and quiet during the hearing. Please do not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of the council or any other person addressing council. And with that, I'll now ask the planning department to outline what the bylaw is proposing and perhaps also to introduce their special guests. Ms. Hamilton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Hamilton. I'm a planner with Community Planning Department, and my special guests today are my parents who have flown in from Ontario. So they're here to watch me present to Council. But I'll be presenting zoning bylaw changes for the patio program for public and Council's consideration this evening. So this background information was provided at first and second reading and is provided again this evening for public information. So prior to 2020, the district supported patio use through the sidewalk patio program. This included any patio on district land. If your patio was on private land, you would have to go through a regular delegated development permit process. When COVID hit in 2020, like many other cities, the district acted quickly to create a temporary patio program so that businesses could expand their service area outdoors to comply with health regulations. Through this process, we had over 20 patios use the temporary patio program, some to expand their existing patios and others to create them for the first time. In October of 2021, the temporary program was extended to June 2022. To give patio owners and district staff time to help convert their temporary patios into a new patio program, one that streamlined the application and review processes for businesses and for internal staff. So shortly after the October 2021 meeting, staff created a new application form where we have received to date 14 applications that have expressed interest in keeping their patio areas. Staff also engaged with businesses and community through a survey that launched in February 2022 to learn more about how the new patio program can serve the community and its businesses better. The district used the Let's Talk Squamish platform to launch 2 surveys in early February to ask specific community and business questions around patio use. We had 151 responses to the community survey and 20 responses to the business survey. Generally, there was significant support amongst respondents for patios, with only 3 responses stating they did not generally support patios. Private and sidewalk patios were the most supportable, with 93 to 94% support, and curbside patios having the least support at 77%. Today's zoning bylaw changes are only relevant to patios on private property, so I'll provide a brief overview of the survey results regarding this specific form of patio. Generally, key reasons why the community supports patios are because they enjoy opportunities for socializing, eating, and drinking outdoors. They support our local businesses by giving them room to grow and have helped. This has helped with COVID economic business recovery. They enjoy that patios provide more outdoor seating opportunities and adds activation and vibrancy to our streets, neighborhoods, and public spaces. Out of 151 respondents, 9 people did not support private patios. The top 3 reasons why they did not support private patios were all parking related, with 5 people concerned that they take up parking stalls for other businesses, that the design of the patios make parking and driving difficult, and are designed unsafely. As part of the survey results, we also had 82 public comments on the community survey, many of which discussed parking. Overall, parking concern comments were generally focused on the downtown street parking patios, which are the curbside patios, which are not applicable to the public hearing this evening. There were 3 comments that spoke in general concern to parking. In contrast, 8 comments spoke to supporting patios in place of parking. Here are just a few of the supportive public comments received. So patios encourage people to interact more, meet others they wouldn't, and encourage community spirit, especially in post-pandemic times. This is so invaluable compared to parking options. Pedestrians first makes the town more vibrant, safer, inclusive. This includes patios and using parking stalls for patios. I'd love to see Squamish really put pedestrians at the forefront of planning. I'm concerned about downtown parking with the planned population growth. Repurposing parking spaces has only a minimal negative impact on parking for otherwise large upside. I would be in favor of many more patios and outdoor seating spaces. The business survey was specifically targeted to existing patio businesses and business owners who operate adjacent to or near patios. The survey asked specific questions around parking and found that no businesses disagreed with the following questions on if parking requirements make it difficult to build or expand a patio in Squamish, and the question of I would like to be able to use more parking stalls to make my patio larger. Both answers had half agreement and were half neutral. This is reflective of the existing patio businesses, as only some patios and locations are affected by parking regulations and some are not challenged by it. So the current zoning bylaw has a parking exemption for patios in the business park area, which was created as part of the business park rezoning work in 2020. This exemption allowed for accessory restaurant areas to use up to 2 parking stalls for patio creation or expansion if a covered bicycle parking structure was created. The temporary patio program highlighted the need for similar exemptions throughout Squamish and not just in the business park. As a result, the amendments being proposed tonight propose a similar exemption for patios, up to 4 stalls for other businesses downtown or areas zoned for restaurant. As a result of these amendments, a few zoning bylaw definitions were added or changed, as well as some Class B bicycle parking regulations were changed in order to ensure that patio expansion is tied to outdoor bicycle parking expansion as well. A few other amendments were proposed that are related but not specifically associated with patios. They include a change to allow portable food vending in zones that allow alcohol beverage manufacturing, and some further word and formatting amendments to the bike regulations recently changed in the latest zoning bylaw amendment. So following the public hearing, staff's recommendation is that the zoning bylaw amendment patio program number 2906-2022 be given 3rd reading. Alternatively, council can extend the temporary patio program until October 31st, 2022, and propose the following changes to the new patio program.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. If you could just turn your microphone off. So I'll now open up the floor to council with any clarifying questions, and then I'll go to the public. Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Hamilton at this time? All right. I don't have a list of names here yet, but that's okay. If anyone would like to speak, I'm just trying to find my place in my notes. All right. If you'd like to speak at this public hearing, if you're here at City Hall, please just raise your hand and wait to be recognized. For all speakers, please approach the podium and start your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood. Please note that speakers will be given up to 5 minutes to address council in order that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. Details to participate on the telephone or WebEx are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. And the instructions are also on the district website. So if you're participating by telephone or WebEx, to get on the speakers list, if you're on the telephone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 on the phone. Or if you're on WebEx, you go to the participant panel and click on the hand icon. Please note that there will be a moderator who will communicate with speakers who are participating by phone or WebEx. When it's your turn to speak, you'll receive a voice prompt on the telephone or a dialog box on WebEx. Please remember to put your hand down after you have finished speaking, *3 again on the telephone, or clicking on the hand icon again on WebEx. If you've already spoken and then wish to speak again to provide more or new comments, you can raise your hand again, and I'm happy to add speakers here to the speakers list once I've indicated that speakers will be offered additional speaking opportunities. So I'll go to those in City Hall. Approach the podium, just start with your name and address or neighborhood. Oh, you do need to turn the microphone on. Thanks.
Okay. My name is Marie-Louise Towers. I live in Brackendale and I own a business downtown. I guess I mostly have some clarifying questions because I had responded to the survey about the parking stall patios specifically. Are any changes happening to that program as far as what's being offered for curbside patios?
Maybe if you could address what your concerns are, if anything is changing.
Well, my concerns are that they are impacting parking, especially on the corner that I'm located on. There are 3 stalls taken up by patios directly north of my store. So it does have a big impact on my customers, especially because many of them have small children and need to drive to come to our location. I definitely just tried to share my displeasure with the fact that public space is being taken up for what I consider to be subsidized space to other businesses when it doesn't benefit my business. I mean, I definitely do want to support patios in general. It's not against that. I do think that we have very wide sidewalks that were widened in the past for that purpose. I just don't agree with using parking stalls to provide very low cost space to other businesses when it impacts my business. So that's my concern. And I put a lot of thought into my survey answers, and I don't feel that any of that was addressed with what's being proposed tonight for changes. So one other thing I would maybe just comment, because with COVID, I know that they were expanded not just for summertime use, but also during the winter. And some people are obviously going to say that there's a need for that space to be used. I just, like, ultimately, my personal preference would be to see food trucks located in park space rather than on roads, and parking stall patios taken out altogether. I pay a lot of money to rent the size of space that I have. I pay a lot of municipal tax. I'm not getting free space anywhere, and I couldn't use that free space anywhere anyway because I have product that I have to display. So I do support trying to keep restaurants vibrant, especially during COVID. But throughout this whole winter, of those 3 parking stalls that are taken up directly north of my store, 2 of them were never, ever shoveled off. And you know how long we had snow here for this winter. So it wasn't that essential for them if they didn't even shovel them off to use them. So that's one other kind of comment I wanted to make to it. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me or want to clarify anything of what I've said.
I don't see any hands at this point. Council? Nope.
Okay. So I guess just as a taxpayer, I would invite that the district should maybe be doing more to respect how other businesses are being influenced by it. Obviously, restaurants are going to be all for it, and I get that. And I'm not trying to pit myself against them either. But every time a parking, like, we have such a problem with parking downtown, and it doesn't seem like anybody cares. I've tried to raise it before, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So I don't think the district should be actively trying to have a program that is taking more parking away. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. Are there any other speakers at City Hall that would like to speak at this public hearing? Okay, I'll go to our moderator. Is there anyone online? So that's *3 or the hand icon.
There are currently no speakers.
Council, I'll come back to you. See if you have any clarifying questions. Okay, I've got Councilor Herford and then Councilor Pettengill.
Thank you. I guess the question to staff is where does the that program that would have the stalls converted, where does that live in relation to what we're discussing here? Because I get that that's outside of this, but where is it?
Through you, Mayor. So this evening is just to speak about the private patios, which is what the zoning bylaw regulates, and why we have a public hearing for any amendments to the zoning bylaw. The other amendments that we had for first, second, and third reading earlier this April were changes to multiple other bylaws, which help to regulate the program, which is for the curbside patios, which is what was being discussed. And the changes proposed, currently the old program had allowed patios to come into place with no fees, and there weren't very many regulations or guidelines around them. The amended program what was proposed to council spoke to adding fees for these patios, so they're no longer just for free for those businesses, as well as specific design considerations. One of them being that if you are not going to use your patio in the winter, you cannot keep it there. So there won't be some of the concerns that we did experience last year, which some patios were just accumulated snow and weren't being used. So that issue is resolved, as well as some design considerations. In the particular case on Winnipeg and Cleveland, there are a few patios very close together, and there are 2 stalls between them, which tend to not be used as 2 stalls just because it's very tight. And some of the design changes we have in the new application form address those issues. We also suggest that patios kind of get pushed to the curb bulges and not have several patios in the middle of the block to also address some of those concerns as well.
Councillor Pettingill, you're all right. Any other questions, council? All right, I will go back to the public. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If there are no further speakers, I would ask council, I already did ask you, if there's any more information the planning department can provide. Didn't see your hands. Now that I've heard from everyone, it's a requirement that I ask 3 times. If there is anyone else who wishes to speak before we can close the public hearing. So for the first time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? For a second time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission at this public hearing? And for the third and final time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? So seeing no further hands, please note that council members are not permitted to receive any further submissions or hear either a proponent or opponent to an application once the public hearing has been concluded. This means we can't speak to you out in the community or receive emails or phone calls on any of these bylaws until a decision on the bylaws has been made. Any and all communication from this point must be channeled to staff. If there are no further speakers, I declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much. Okay, so council, later in our bylaw, we can contemplate third hearing. If you'd like me to suspend the order to do that now, I'm happy to do that, or we can move to Mr. Daly. Would you like some time to think about it, or you're going to think about it? You want to do now? All right, so we'll suspend the order of the agenda, although we lost Ms. Hamilton. So we've moved to item 8B1. Is she coming? So council, the staff recommendation is that third reading be given to the amendment bylaw number 2906, 2022. That's all right. We suspended the order of the agenda just so we could get you out of here faster. Is moved by Councillor Stoner. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Herford. Comments? Councillor Stoner, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm happy to support third reading of the zoning amendments for the patio program. At this time, I think it makes good sense to bring it in line with the regulations that we have in the business park and extend that across our community. And the others minor amendments that are being made, I think, make good sense, in particular around the new covered bicycle parking definitions and the Class B bicycle parking amendments are just helpful clarification items. I want to thank our speaker during the public hearing and appreciate the concerns that were raised. This has been a little bit of a nebulous process in terms of streamlining our patio program, and there are a few different elements to it, as staff mentioned in response to one of the questions. So we have made significant efforts as we brought in the new patio program by introducing a fee for that public space. So hopefully that reduces the idea of it being subsidized. But I also want to address the fact that many of the patios that I have seen come forward are not necessarily being held specifically for that business. They are potentially benefiting that one business, but I've noticed that they're also very open to the public. You don't necessarily need to frequent that business. They've really become kind of gathering points for the community. And I think that that helps brighten up the street in general. It helps create more people coming downtown. And I think that all the businesses around it tend to benefit from that. I also appreciate the new design guidelines that came in line with the patio program more broadly. But again, that is not part of the proposed zoning bylaw changes in front of us this evening. With respect to the parking concerns, I will just note that we are going through an update of our parking strategy this year, and I think that that is a more appropriate place to address any concerns with parking downtown as opposed to this one-off zoning bylaw amendment. So happy to address those concerns in that other process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner. Other comments? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you. I will be supporting third reading for the reason that there's been a good deal of good housekeeping in this initiative. The categories or the nomenclature for different types of patios, this is overdue and will be welcome. The fee structure, there's more parity in the fee reflected in the fee structure. The application form, the new one, will allow for better evaluation by staff. However, and I'm going to start to here, I'll just cite from the April 5th report to Council, although there are some concerns around downtown parking availability, they are likely not caused by patios on their own. Therefore, these concerns may be better addressed through and a list of parking strategy elements, zoning elements, and transportation. However, the circumstances at Cleveland and Winnipeg are unique, and they are an issue for this initiative and for a downtown parking strategy. We have the post office as an institution here, and we have endorsed and encouraged by deliberate policy for over 2 decades the location of clinics and other such services and institutional offices downtown. We need to consider accessibility and parking for seniors, disabled persons, clinics, and for tourists. I recall that on March 11th, it was a Wednesday because it was the day after council. On Tuesday, 2020, I was acting mayor and was called down to sign leases for 2 food trucks at Cleveland and Winnipeg. It was the day after we had discussed downtown parkade strategy. And part of that discussion was that there's some interim things we should be doing. So I left the office after signing these leases thinking, is there sufficient coordination of efforts? We need to be sure we are looking at and acting on the whole picture in coordination. We need to be mindful of cumulative impacts and not least at Winnipeg and Cleveland. We have nuances and diverse functions of the downtown high street core that need to be clearly identified, and I don't see that they are in too many reports over the years and how they affect parking strategy. So I hope to see these issues addressed. And in the meantime, I will endorse third reading, but I do hope to see these issues addressed in the forthcoming parking strategy. Thank you.
Other comments? Councillor Hertford and then Reese.
Thank you. I'll be supporting third reading. I appreciate the learnings done through COVID time. I think it was an interesting time to, amongst all the negatives, to take some opportunities to try some new things and to learn from them. And this represents to me some refinement of those learnings. So I'm happy to see those applied going forward. There is more work to be done, as there always is, it seems, around downtown parking in particular, and that is work that's happening in another process. So perhaps the outcome of that can feed back into the patio piece. But the timing, I think, is right to move forward with this, and I'm curious to see and work through that process of upcoming with the downtown parking in general. So I support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Race, go ahead.
Thank you. I will also be supporting this, and I'm not going to repeat all the reasons given by my fellow councillors. I agree with those. But I think, the patio program and the improvements to the patio program, I think were one of the things that has come out of COVID, and are perhaps one of the good news stories that came out of this period of time, where efforts were made to make them really work for the community and for the individual businesses. The other thing, though, is it does talk about parking spaces. It's a concern. We've heard it here tonight. Councillors have mentioned it, staff have mentioned it, and the public has mentioned it. And so I want to give everybody a heads up that next Tuesday, at about 9 o'clock in the morning. I believe it's going to start at 9 in the morning at the committee of the whole meeting. There's going to be a presentation from the planning department at UBC, some planning students on downtown parking in Squamish. And so if you are interested, you can either attend in public here or you can watch it online, or it will be archived in the website and you can refer to it later at your convenience. I haven't seen it. I've just heard that it is a very good study and maybe of interest to all of us. Thank you.
Councillor Pettengill.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this. I won't repeat what many of my colleagues have said. I think the feedback from the public shows really strong support for patios, especially coming out of COVID. We are with this talking about private patios. And so there are, as was mentioned, other processes where we are looking at the patios and parking areas. But I think in any case, there's very strong support for the patios. People are just really eager to get outside and get together and enjoy spaces together after COVID. And I think really appreciate the work that staff has done on making this happen and happy to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Finch.
Thanks, Mayor. First, thank you to staff who have put a significant amount of time and effort into this project, and to all of those who provided feedback for us. Feedback is important, particularly from those who are concerned about the direction that we're taking. And it takes something to come forward with an opinion that's contrary to what's in front of us. So for those that have been brave enough to express their opinions, no matter what they are, thank you. So, and in speaking in favor of the motion, I really feel that a vibrant downtown is a successful downtown. I too have downtown parking concerns, and we as a community need to shift our thinking around parking and vehicle use, particularly in the downtown. I see this as a separate yet related issue, and in saying that, I'm looking forward to the work that we are going to be doing around parking issues downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Going backwards, we're going to 8A1, District of Squamish zoning bylaw. This is amendment bylaw for the Upper Finch Drive rezoning, number 2811, 2021. And I will turn things over to Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Daly, Development and Subdivision Coordinator with Community Planning. Tonight I'm here to present a rezoning application at 1050, 1056, 1057, and 1070 Finch Drive for consideration of second reading. At the March 15th, 2022 regular council meeting, Council gave bylaw number 2811 first reading. While supportive of the proposal in general, more clarification was requested regarding the valuation of the 2 apartment dwelling units proposed to be donated to the Squamish Community Housing Society. There is also a desire to see the applicant commit to constructing some market rental units and concern about requiring the applicant to construct a commercial unit on site. The subject properties are located on the east end of Finch and Raven Drive, totaling 8.5 hectares in area, and are zoned RS1. The western portion of 1050 Finch is relatively flat before rising steeply to an upper bench area in the center of the site and transitioning into a steep mountainside further to the east. To address comments received from council at first reading, the applicant has committed to constructing 4 market rental apartment units in the AP1 apartment building. This building will contain all the affordable rental units and the 2 units that are proposed to be donated to the Squamish Community Housing Society. The applicant has confirmed that these 4 units can be accommodated in the building with the additional story allowed in the zoning without impacting the footprint of the building. This commitment will be secured in the land development agreement, as the additional rental units are allowed through the density bonus section in the CD 101 zone. The applicant intends to take advantage of the rental density bonus, which allows up to 15 additional apartment units, provided they are secured as market rental, but is hesitant to commit to constructing more than 4 of these units until the detailed design of the apartment buildings has been completed. Given Council's hesitation regarding the requirement for the construction of a commercial unit, the language around this requirement in the land development agreement will be revised to require the construction of either 1 commercial unit or additional childcare space This will allow additional flexibility for the applicant if it is determined that the commercial space is not viable once the development has been constructed. Some council members requested clarification on the $1 million valuation for the donation of one 2-bedroom and one 3-bedroom apartment unit to the Squamish Community Housing Society as part of the CAC offer. The applicant has provided a construction cost estimate of $400 per square foot, not including land value, which staff agree is accurate and reflects the value and the value reflects general pro forma calculation practice in Squamish. The valuation is comparable to the construction cost for the Buckley Affordable Housing Project. The applicant has committed to providing a minimum of 2,000 square feet combined gross floor area for the 2 units, which would equate to a cost of $800,000 for the applicant to construct these 2 units. The donation of these 2 units is facilitated through the additional apartment building height allowed in the CD 101 zone. This additional height also allows for 20 for-sale apartment units. The recommended CAC for the 20 additional units is $150,060. The cost to construct the 2 units far exceeds the required CAC for the additional for-sale units. To inform the community per policy, the project was posted to the district's development showcase and a development sign has been posted at the site. No comments or requests for a public information meeting have been received to date. So staff recommend giving bylaw 2811 second reading and that a public hearing be scheduled for May 10th at 6 p.m. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Council. Go ahead. Council Race. I anticipated you. That was your poker tell. Scratching your head.
So I thank you for putting the information in with respect to building costs and so forth. So I guess the problem I'm having with this is when we go back to committee of the whole, we said that this was a good place for density. And so we encourage staff and the applicant to consider adding a floor. And so they have. And so what's before us now is 1 floor higher than it was at committee of the whole. And correct me if I'm missing something. So it says here, the additional height also allows 24 sale. That's in addition to the 2 units, apartment units. The recommended CAC for the 20 additional units is $150,000. So the $1 million valuation for the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom at today's prices, and I'm really just kind of ballparking it, they'd probably sell for something like $1 million each. Costs $800,000 plus land, so $1 million. So that's about $500,000 per unit profit, times 20 additional units. So that's $10 million additional profit. And from my perspective, only getting 2 fee simple units out of it for that is not enough. And so is my math wrong? Am I missing something here? That's the problem I'm having with this proposal.
Through the mayor, staff are working off the community amenity contribution policy to guide these negotiations. So the evaluation for those units was $150,060. So if this rezoning application were coming in, that would be the required CAC for that additional amount of density. And the proponent is offering to donate 2 units to the Community Housing Society, which has a valuation of our cost of construction of $800,000, which would far exceed the $150,000 requirement in the CAC policy. So staff have been negotiating off the policy that is currently in place.
I guess my difficulty is, and I said it before, I don't think this actually falls into the current policy. The current policy, from my recollection, doesn't talk about donation of fee simple units. We may review that, but at the moment it really doesn't. And so this is a little bit kind of off the chart, if you like, to to consider this, but, you know, rather than go back to the sort of the normal fee structure, if we were going to just stick with the normal fee structure, then I'd prefer to just stick with a building that's one floor lower. I think that's kind of, you know, for this additional floor, I think I am looking for additional compensation. And I just don't think the community is getting enough out of that additional floor and the lift that is involved in that.
So that was more of a comment than a question. Thank you.
Well, I can say, what do you think? But I did.
Any other questions? Councillor Stoner.
I guess just to clarify on my colleague's point to staff, although at committee of the whole, we suggested the potential of bringing in an additional floor of density, this application still hasn't maximized the density as per the sub-area plan. Is that correct? So they're not actually asking for additional density.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly, can you speak to the market rental and the ability for the developer to build up to 15? We're only securing 4 in the LDA, and how your confidence in how the rest get built as we proceed through this.
Okay, so the way that the additional height has been added, it facilitates 20 additional units that have a maximum gross floor area of 20,000 square feet, or I should say, sorry, 22. 2 of them will come back to the district. So the applicant is limited by that amount of gross floor area with the additional height. There is also a rental density bonus built in that allows for up to 15 additional units and associated floor area, provided they are secured as market rental. The applicant is comfortable committing to constructing 4 of those 15 at this time because they are confident that they can accommodate it in the existing building footprints that they have generally designed so far. However, further detailed design needs to happen for the applicant to confirm that they can complete all 15, though they have acknowledged that they are willing to maximize this rental density bonus. They just need to get further down the detailed design path to figure out where these units are specifically located.
Is there any opportunity for us to secure those later in the process after the detailed design?
They would be secured at development permit stage. That would be the time that the housing agreement would be secured once the building is designed, and then a housing agreement bylaw would be brought forward with the development permit and would secure those units.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Pettengill.
So, and are the affordable units still all proposed to be the closest in proximity to the proposed pipeline?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I'm not seeing any further hands. Staff recommendation is second reading and setting a public hearing for May 10th at 6 p.m. Councillor Race?
Yeah, I'll move that this matter be referred back to staff. If it's seconded, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. And the reason I'm doing this is because if it goes through as is to second reading and possibly third reading, I would be inclined to probably not support it. And I think on the balance of the arrangement, this is a good development. But I am caught by that one thing that I mentioned in my question / comment. And so don't want to necessarily defeat second reading because that would put the thing back to square one. And I don't think that's a good solution. I would rather see this sorted out, or at least give the developer and staff one more chance to sort it out prior to it going to a vote that may end the project. So that's my reason for doing it this way. If second reading was on the floor, then really we either pass it or defeat it. And if we defeat it, then of course it's kind of the end of the application. So I prefer to consider this, at least. If there's no support from council, that's fine. We go to second reading. Of course, that would be the next motion. But that's the reason I have proposed this, and that's the concern I have with this development.
Other comments? Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I am supporting Councillor Race's alternate motion. I am much better satisfied with the new clarifications and information that's come forward, not only from planning staff, but in consultation with the development proponent. So this picture is a little bit more clear for me. However, it is also a precedent project. This is a project we will probably see these issues surface again. And it's important that we have clear minds as to the direction and strategy we're taking with these initiatives, with the new picture that we have with the Housing Society. So for that reason, I'm happy to support Councillor Race's motion that we take a pause and be sure before taking next steps. Thank you.
Councillor Stoner, and then I'll put myself on the list.
Thank you. Through the chair, I will not be supporting the motion on the floor. I would rather see this be given second reading and go to public hearing. I appreciate my colleagues' efforts to try and get as much clarification and as much out of this development application as possible. But as I review where we're at with our current CAC policy and what is being provided or offered by the proponent, as my colleague has said, this is outside of the box that we're currently working in, and I don't think it's entirely fair to hold this applicant and the application to ongoing negotiations when we're currently in the process of updating our CAC policy. I think this goes beyond where we're currently working on our current policy, and so appreciate that it's been a little bit gray and there's always hope to try and secure more. But I think this is a interesting proposal at this time, and I think it is robust enough to go to public hearing and we can hear from the community whether they think it's sufficient or not. But I think based on our current policy context that we have, I think that this is a fair application to be moving forward at this time.
I too won't support the motion on the floor. I think one of the tables that Mr. Daly didn't present this evening was the whole list of CACs being provided through this project. And it's lengthy and in many cases exceeds our current policy. I think the place to really wrestle with how we incorporate fee simple units into our CAC policy is when we review that policy, because we'll need to build the pro formas around that and understand how these types of donations impact or don't impact profitability. And we shouldn't be necessarily doing that on the fly. I've never seen fee simple units be donated into the district before. I think this is a very excellent precedent. I think we can start to negotiate more of that, but I don't think we negotiate the whole new CAC policy on the back of one developer. I think the CAC proposal in front of us is generous. I like the number of affordable units that are being proposed, the space for market rental, and just the overall way that this development fits into its environment, I think is being done very well. So I wouldn't want to see this delayed. I'd rather hear what the public has to say on May 10th. Any other comments? Councillor for French.
Thanks, Mayor. I won't be supporting the motion. I'm keen to get this development proposal to a public hearing, and if this current motion fails, I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Hertford.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion in front of us. I think further delay and around this particular project actually puts that contribution at risk. And and I'd like to see those two units come to us. I love the concept of swinging for the fences and wanting more across the board, but I'm worried that in that push, we'll go over the threshold and not get these 2 units. By staff's calculation, this this contribution exceeds our current CAC policy, not by a small amount, approaching 10 times. So I'm comfortable with where we are with this and the work that's been done so far, enough to go to public hearing. Anyways, and I do think that this does highlight challenges with our current CAC policy, and I look forward to having those conversations, those debates in that venue when we're speaking specifically about that. But the regulations we have today, I think that overall this gets us there. So I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Councillor French, Councillor Stoner, Mayor Elliott, Councillor Herford opposed. Motion fails. Councillor French.
Yeah, Chair, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Is there
And
a
I'll speak
second?
to it.
Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm looking forward to getting feedback on the hillside development strategy that's being proposed for these properties, and feedback as well on the CAC contribution that's proposed in the package. This development proposal is potentially precedent setting on a few fronts. 4 tall buildings proposed against hillsides, and the donation of 2 living units to our housing society. These are things that I'd like to better understand how our community feels about. And I support moving this forward.
Any other further comments? Councillor Pettengill?
Yeah, I'm going to support this for now. I'm really torn on this one. As I think I've said in the past, I like a lot of what this development is doing. I am still very concerned about the proposed Fortis pipeline. I know that's not this developer's fault, but as far as I can tell, in terms of our obligations as a municipality, we have to zone in accordance with those risks and managing those risks. And I don't see us doing that, especially with the affordable units right there. And I haven't figured out a good resolution because it's really Fortis that needs to address this. And I think collectively we need to push Fortis somehow. I'm uncomfortable sort of saying, oh, there's nothing we can do and just sitting on our hands and just move ahead as if Fortis isn't sort of coming down under the road with this pipeline where it shouldn't be going. So I'm really torn. I to be honest, I think I'm supporting this for now to give myself a bit more time to think of an idea to try and get that pipeline away from all this density, because I think as far as I can tell, everything I've read, this causes a significant risk, and putting that risk the most at affordable housing, which is the closest, is a big concern. So I just wanted to reiterate that. But for the moment, I will support this because, again, I think this is largely Fortis's doing. And I would like to find a way that this developer doesn't take responsibility for Fortis's poor planning. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I'll be supporting the present motion. I think that planning staff have heard our concerns and information interests tonight and previously. Sometimes in our meeting settings, it may be that information exchange might be clumsy, and it's new territory for us. However, we'll have opportunity with the CAC policy review as well as the upcoming public hearing to review further. There are many interesting features of this development proposal, building on the hillside, bringing an impressive, ambitious project forward within significant landscape, topographical, road infrastructure, et cetera, constraints. So we'll be interested to review again the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. I will call the question. Any opposed? Councillor Race opposes. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Daly. Council, we're on to item 8C1. This is adoption of the 2022 to 2025 financial plan bylaw amendment 2904 2022, that this be adopted. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have under staff reports, 9A1, the Honaic Park Sea Dike. And I believe Mr. Ralston is joining us electronically. Go ahead, Mr. Ralston.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just give me 1 minute, please, while I tee up my PowerPoint presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. I just need to put in presentation mode. There you go.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Ralston. I'm the manager of municipal infrastructure with the District of Squamish, and here to seeking Council's resolution to take maintenance responsibilities for the proposed Honaic Park Sea Dike. So again, the objectives to seeking council agreement to become the local diking authority for the Honaic Park Sea Dike, which is a provincial policy prior to receiving approval under the Dike Maintenance Act, and also taking the opportunity to provide a brief project update since it's been close to 2 years since this council has last seen this project. Some quick background and an update. So in 2017, the district finished the Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan, which recommended this along with other sea dike upgrades. In November of 2019, Council endorsed proceeding with the detailed design of the sea dike using option 1, which was a sheet pile at the high water mark. In 2019, staff engaged a consulting team and initiated the design. In 2020, we received a $4 million grant to partially fund the project. And in July of 2020, Council endorsed with proceeding with a design that preserved a historic notch in the shoreline. That's the last time that this project has been to Council. In March of 2021, we completed the detailed design for the project and submitted permitting applications to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Inspector of Dikes, and Transport Canada. Also in 2021, we completed an archaeological impact assessment. And throughout the project, we've been engaging with Squamish Nation rights and title staff. And we're continuing to engage with regulators regarding our permitting applications and aiming to begin construction during this year's least risk fisheries window, which is August 16th to January 31st. And that's pending successful permitting processes under all of those applications. So the provinces and the Inspector of Dikes have a policy to not approve any new dikes until the local government has agreed to take the role of local diking authority and to be responsible for maintenance. This section of sea dike will ultimately form part of a 7-kilometer long sea dike that protects downtown Squamish and surrounding areas as identified in the Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan. So now into the design. So the design features a 200-meter long sheet pile dike that preserves this historic notch within the shoreline. We also have, for habitat compensation, shown in green are marsh planting areas. And in addition to that, we're also proposing to wrap all of the pilings with herring nets to provide a spawning surface for herring. In addition to that, we're building a water access system. So this is a 70-meter long ramp with an intermediate floating platform and a 13-meter by 19-meter floating concrete dock at the end to provide access for handcraft. And on the dike top itself, we have a 2.4-meter wide pedestrian path and a 3.6-meter wide cycling path, along with street furniture, lighting, and landscaping. We have parking lot improvements at the Main Street road end, including a fully accessible ramp from the parking lot up to the dike top, and you can see that that is in alignment with the ramp system as well. So trying to facilitate users getting to the water. And getting into the public water access in a little bit more detail. So the top is the plan view showing the ramp and dock system, and on the bottom are the proposed or what would be the grades of the ramp during different tidal conditions. So at the lowest low tides of the year, the maximum ramp grade would be 15%. So that's we're trying to facilitate access for all users, and that's we feel we've reached a reasonable compromise with the design to limit the maximum grade to 15%. Of course, that's the steepest that it would be, and it would be much flatter under more normal operating conditions. So the recommendation is that the District of Squamish agrees to become the local diking authority for the Nanick Park Sea Dike in accordance with provincial policy. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston. Council, the decision before us tonight is about becoming the diking authority. We are not going to, 1 year into permitting, redesign this structure, but I am happy to entertain clarifying questions about it since we haven't seen it for some time. But I think we'd watch Mr. Ralston's head explode if we decided to redesign the dike now that he's got all his permits submitted. So, Council, any questions? Councillor Stoner and then Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm curious who is responsible for maintenance of our current dikes, and as we take on maintenance and diking authority, is there provincial funding for future maintenance requirements?
Through the mayor, the District of Squamish is the local diking authority. We're responsible for maintenance of all the existing dikes in our community. So this would simply be adding to our roster of roughly 21 kilometers of dikes already. And at this point, no, there is not any funding available for maintenance. There are frequent funding opportunities for building new, upgrading existing dikes, but not for maintenance.
One other question. I'm just curious if we're anticipating any cost escalations in the project, given that the original budget was in 2019.
Through the mayor, yes, there have been cost escalations. Originally, when we submitted our grant application, the cost estimate at that time, which was prior to completing geotechnical investigation or really anything beyond a conceptual design, the design at that time was $5 million. That also didn't include a water access system. So our current estimate is just around $10 million. So it's close to double, but the project has also increased in scope, and in particular with the water access system.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston. And one thing to watch is after the atmospheric river events, the province did say it was a mistake to download all of the diking authority to municipalities. So we can probably expect some changes in the future around building and maintaining of diking systems. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Mr. Ralston, I'm looking at the November 12, 2019 report, which may have been the last time we've heard at least a comprehensive presentation. And that report refers to the desirability, the district seeking to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the developers adjacent at Sirocco, as well as Waterfront Landing. I wonder if you may be able to give a brief synopsis as to the status of that pursuit of a memorandum of understanding. And this is with respect to future docks and coordinating such. Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, we did enter into a memorandum of understanding with the developers of the Sirocco development as well as the Sea and Sky development with the intent to coordinate the designs of the Sea Dike, the future proposed float home development in front of the Sirocco development, as well as the pedestrian bridge for the Sea and Sky. And we have been coordinating those designs. We quite actively up until about a year ago, and now the designs are at quite an advanced stage, so there's less coordination required, but we do continue to coordinate that and yeah, in accordance with the memorandum of understanding.
Thank you. Your present report refers to permitting times have now reached 1 year review. In essence, there have been some permitting delays. I'm wondering whether one of those permitting delays was relating to the archaeological impact assessment, although your report tonight does suggest that that's completed. And my reason for asking about this is that having been in consultation with the archaeological consultant here who was looking for old photographs, I wondered whether this situation, this site may instead have deserved an archaeological overview assessment, which would not have required a permit under the Heritage Conservation Act. So there's really two questions there. Sometimes we may judge in advance whether an archaeological overview assessment is better suited to the site unless we find out different versus an archaeological impact assessment, a more detailed process. Is this part of the picture of permitting delays, and can you offer some observations on future strategy in choosing between these different types of assessments?
Through the mayor, I would say that yes, the archaeological impact assessment has been a part of the permitting delays because the province and federal governments, when they are reviewing our permitting applications, they have a duty to consult with affected First Nations. And so in our engagement with the Squamish Nation, they indicated that they did desire to see an archaeological impact assessment completed, or I should say an archaeological review. And upon our review of that, we found that an archaeological overview assessment has actually already been completed for this area as part of the truck routing study a couple of years ago. However, it was found to not have enough detail. And in the case of this sea dike, where we are going to be disturbing the ground and in an area that was identified as having some archaeological potential, it was determined with the Squamish Nation and with archaeological professionals that an archaeological impact assessment would actually be required in order to provide the level of information that we would require to begin construction.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for that clarification. That's very helpful. I did have one final quick question, and this is a streamkeeper from streamkeeper experience. Herring nets or installing spawning surfaces for herring can't be left anywhere or it will deteriorate and be colonized by other creatures. So is there provision for maintenance of the herring spawning services as part of the design? Typically, Squamish terminals or False Creek, they're pulled up in April and scrubbed clean and stored until January. Is that been taken into account?
Through the chair, yes, it has. We are aware of that, that frequent maintenance would be required. It was largely a labor intensive exercise. The materials themselves are not very costly. But yes, we are aware of that. And in fact, as part of our DFO application, we'll be required to submit bonding for the first 5 years of maintenance that would be required for those herring nets. But then, of course, we would have to continue to maintain them in perpetuity beyond that.
Which involves a public education opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. I was just actually, when I was listening to the other questions, I think I found the answer, but I was going to ask the height of the dike. I'd forgotten, but I think there's a number 4.7, which sort of strikes a bit of a memory chord. Is that the height of the dike? And then it seems later at the toe of the dike, we're looking at a number of 2.9. So it's a not quite 2 meter rise above more or less the existing grade.
Through the mayor, yes, the dike would be 4.7 meters geodetic elevation, and the site of the existing site of Hunnic Park is roughly 2.5 to 3 meters, depending on the location. So from the land side to the crest of the dike would be roughly 2 meters.
Any other questions? All right. So the motion is that the District of Squamish agrees to become the local diking authority for the Honeak Park Sea Dike in accordance with provincial policy. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any further comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for the update, Mr. Ralston.
Thank you.
We're on to item 9A, sub 2, Union of BC Municipalities Housing Needs Assessment Grant. This is a memo that we received, Council. And is anyone speaking to this? Mr. Buxton.
Yes, Mayor Council, I can be very brief. The Housing Needs Report program by UBCM is a sort of a program that they have to support housing needs assessments for communities, which are now required by the Local Government Act. We already have one from 2018, but we've been invited to submit an application to the program that's now been closed. So the remaining funds they're looking to distribute to a maximum of $30,000. It will replace or update the housing needs assessment we had done in 2018 in the preparations or run up for the Spirit Creek or the Buckley Affordable Rental Housing Project. I've outlined the results. Those are generally the requirements of the Local Government Act that need to be covered in the application. But the application process requires a council motion. So at the end of the memo is that motion. It's a simple motion of support to submit the application.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. Council, is someone willing to move that, or do you have a question? Councillor Anderson?
Chair. Mr. Buxton, the second to last community housing needs assessment that was done about 2015 or 2014, probably spanning those 2 years, was done by a local nonprofit and supported by a CMHC grant, federal grant. This new provincial program, apparently only local governments or regional districts or islands trusts are eligible applicants. My question to you is, we now have a housing society established. Is it possible to entertain subcontracting or farming out the actual work of the needs assessment to that group under the guidelines for this particular program? Or are we not only going to be the grant applicant, but we'll carry it out in-house? Is it possible to involve, how can we involve the housing society under the terms of the program?
My recommendation is that we, the district, submit the application. Given the sort of very new status of the society, I'm reluctant to sort of drop something onto them immediately. Will we involve the society in its preparation? Yes, that's part of the consulting with the partners in the society is part of the application. But I think it would be a little premature at this point to try and it's difficult to put an application together with an entity that doesn't actually have any staff at present. So will they be involved? Yes. Would we put it in the application? I would recommend not.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton.
Any other questions? Moved by Councillor Hertford, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments? Be nice to update it. Lots has changed since 2018, so it's nice to be asked. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Council, we're on to item 10, our consent agenda. If there's anything in the consent agenda in which you are in conflict or which you'd like to pull, whether minutes or correspondence, please do so now. Or someone can move the consent agenda. It is moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any opposed? Motion carries. There were no late agenda items, so we're on to correspondence. 12A, under action requested, that the correspondence from RNs be referred to the Director of Community Planning for response. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any opposed? Motion carries. That the correspondence from the Ministry of Environment regarding the Organics Infrastructure Program be referred to the Manager of Sustainability and Climate Change for investigation. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Brace. Any opposed? Motion carries. The correspondence from S. Bibbings is for council consideration. Can't remember what this is off the top of my head. Oh, geez. All right. I thought we dealt with this already. Did we not? In a previous agenda? Feel like we did. Councillor Pettengill?
Sorry. My recollection is we got other correspondence we moved to receive, but I was going to propose that we ask the mayor just to have a conversation with Squamish Nation at the next breakfast. My understanding is the nation has put out a statement, and I just thought it before considering any action, it would be worth touching base with the nation. I do think there is some merit to some of the concerns, and I understand Councillor Anderson shared some information about some of the processes available, but there's, I would say, a lot of concern, and I am a bit hesitant at this point to just let it completely go, but I don't feel prepared to take a more significant action at this point before having a conversation with Squamish Nation. So should I move that? I guess, yeah, I guess, sorry, I'll move.
Was the pregnant pause enough?
I move that the mayor just touch base with Squamish Nation about this topic, just to get a bit better understanding of where they are on the issue.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have correspondence from Mr. Parker, Squamish Trail Society, that this be referred to the GM of Community Planning and Sustainability for investigation and response. And this is to help them get permission to repair a main trail through the estuary in WMA. Councillor Anderson?
Oh, excuse me. I'm prepared to move move that we the staff recommendation. I'd like to offer an observation or two for the consideration of staff.
Hold on. Let's get it seconded. Then you can
Very
comment.
good.
Seconded by Councillor Herford. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mary Elliott. I'd like to acknowledge, firstly, the Trail Society for a very well-considered letter and a picture of doing their homework and spelling what they see in their requests out very clearly, and this is helpful. The wildlife management area is a work in progress and has long been considered to be such. It was undertaken, the present management plan, by the Squamish Estuary Management Committee, or a subcommittee of that, during 2000 or up to 2007, 2000 to 2007. One of the things that has since been one of several things that has since been realized that is lacking in the management strategy is attention to heritage values. And this affects the present trails proposal. There's a map accompanying the Trail Society letter, and on that map is indicated an Old South Dike. That is an 1890s dike built by Chinese-Canadian crews working for original owner George McGee. There is also reference to a Swan South Trail to the north of their project area, and this is a known Squamish Nation village site and hence an archaeological site. So I'd just like to advise staff that heritage values are an outstanding thing that need to be addressed in the Wildlife Management Area Management Plan, and that the Trail Society and the work plan might take these into account. The archaeological site is right on the trail to the north, and so in case it affects work plans, just passing on that observation, and otherwise happy to endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Oh, yes, comments.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight the work of the Trail Society and in all their projects, but in this one in particular, where it is a bit of a regulatory, I'll call it a quagmire, but they're still pushing forward to improve our trail network despite the challenges posed there. So I do agree that stretch needs to be done, and I think they're the entity to do it. So hopefully we can facilitate that happening. Happy to support.
Councillor Penga.
Yeah, happy to support as well. Just like to reinforce some of Councillor Anderson's comments. Shortly before COVID, I was on a botany tour hosted by some Squamish Nation members. And through that whole area, there's some important, from what I understand, agricultural areas and other things. So I think making sure these things are considered as this moves forward is important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. That the correspondence from P. Crowther be referred to the manager of real estate for response. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that the correspondence from K. Clark be referred to the GM of Community Services. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Race. Any? Yep, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to point out that originally this letter was for council consideration, and I did a little looking into this and had actually prepared a motion, although I prefer that we take this move of sending it to the GM of Community Services as opposed to me putting my not super well guided motion onto the floor. So I'm looking forward to this going to staff.
Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Surprisingly, we don't have anything under 13, and no items under 14. Any business arising from the minutes, Council? Committee minutes and reports, none. There are no council in-staff camera announcements. We do not have any unscheduled public attendance under 18. Number 19, open question period, clarification related to agenda items. There's no one online and no one in the gallery has any questions. Council or staff announcements. I'll start. Tomorrow evening, Councillor Stoner and myself and Celeste Bickford, who is a member of our school board, are hosting an evening discussion for women interested in running in the upcoming local elections. It's at the library from 7 till 9. And it's bring your own mug of tea, and we're providing some light snacks. So I'm very excited to say that we already have RSVPs. So there will be people there. Really, this is just about encouraging women to be curious about the process of running for school board and council, or getting involved in campaigns and what is involved in the campaign process. So I'm very excited to be joined by my two esteemed colleagues in this discussion. Other announcements? Councillor Pettengill?
I guess my favorite topic, I think Fortis is having an engagement next Wednesday at the Executive Suites from 5 to 8 p.m. on, I believe, on their pipeline. So people who are interested or have questions, put that in your calendar.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes, Mayor Elliott, Councillor Pettengill, Councillor Herford, and myself briefly, because I was double booked, attended the Chamber of Commerce Après 5 event last Wednesday. It's been a long time since the Chamber has been able to host such events, and they have been sorely missed. A great opportunity for community conversation, and nice to see those events back again with relaxing of restrictions.
I just remembered this Thursday morning is the opening celebration for the art of cleaning lakes and oceans. So these are people that receive, these are artists that receive trash from divers that pull it out of our local lakes. And back when it was still rainy and cold, they all got a grab bag of trash and have turned it into art. And those pieces will be revealed on Thursday morning, and those will be at the library in the foyer gallery. So watch for that. All right, seeing no further hands, motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor French. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, staff who supported us this evening and the public who participated, and thank you, council.